Voice check 1 2 3 4 5. Hello, Sarah. Hello, SJ. Microphone's going hot.
Okay. Prepared for hot microphone.
Hot mic. Hot mic is on. We are live. A minute early. Guy Steve will probably join us later. We found Ken. We fished him out of the water. He's been out shopping for boats. I'm going to guess Debbie threw you in. So, today we are going to be talking about kit models of rockets and gantries and stuff like that. And first, before we get going, I think probably the best thing to do is to define what a few of these things are. A gantry, which I'm putting a picture of now. I know, Ken, we're running about a 20-second delay tonight.
Hey, we didn't do the sound check.
Oh, I'm sorry. Give me a sound check.
Sound check. Checking the sound. Check, 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 check.
Okay. You see, this thing moved the comments down below instead of off to the side. I don't know how to get them back up there. Because that way I could monitor everything at once, and now I can't.
Somebody said, Natasha said 5x5, and DeCam said 5x5 what?
Is secret. So, anyway.
Edward Bender says, Ken, you should have bought the SS United States.
Yeah, you could have got it for a song and a tap dance. So, real quick, a gantry is a structure, normally involving winches and stuff, that is, basically just an overhead structure that's used for supporting stuff. It's a pretty simple definition of it. But this gantry that's in the picture was a test gantry. It was not, this is at Huntsville. This is not for launching the rocket. It was so the people could crawl all around it and everything. And that was while they were doing static fires and stuff like that. When you start getting into what?
Celebrating Vintage Kids says 5x5 is a special burger at In-N-Out.
And I want it monster style. So if you look at this great photo of a Saturn V, on the left, the big red and white thing with all the plumbing going up the side is the launch umbilical tower. All right? That people call it a gantry, but actually the big gray thing on the right is the service gantry. Of course, this allows technicians access all the way around the rocket, which they desperately need. At the bottom, you have what we call the launch pad, technically the mobile pad. And below that, you have the crawler. Now, on the left, the crawler is the actual machine, basically made by a locomotive company, a tracked vehicle, that moves the rocket back and forth to the pad. If you look on the right, you see the crawler with the mobile pad on top of it. That is the actual launch pad. So this whole thing goes out with the Saturn V or the shuttle on top of it. Then the crawler drops down and drives back. So just the mobile pad is there with the rocket and the launch umbilical tower on it. Okay, rocket goes away, boom, lifts off. Then the crawler goes back, gets the mobile pad and the launch umbilical tower. Although with the shuttle, I think that assembly all stayed there. But anyway, and then the gantry, the big gray thing, I think it's on rails. It just slides out of the way. So you've got all these major components. You've got the launch tower, you've got the service gantry, you've got and you have the launch pad, which in case of NASA, you also have the crawler, which we're the only ones that use a crawler system. But I just wanted to cover what these things were before we get into it. Now, of course, that's the way they do it today. When we're dealing with like the Junos and the Jupiters and the Redstones, that whole big red service gantry that's around it, those things pull out of the way and the whole thing slides back on rails, because the rocket itself, in the case of the Redstones and them, they stood up by themselves when they launched. They had some plugins that popped out just before they went up, providing electricity and stuff. But they were freestanding, like because they were an offshoot of the old German V2s. But when you're talking about the actual that is just the launch umbilical tower. And of course it's got the launch pad underneath it. The crawler's gone. I'm assuming this photo was taken a little while after one of the Saturns had launched or something. But so that's a launch umbilical, or a LUT. And I actually know somebody who worked on those. And the engineering of the launch umbilical tower and the crawler and the launch pads is impressive as the engineering that goes behind the rocket. He was telling me that, remember, everything was done on blueprints, physical blueprints and drafting designs. He worked for Boeing, who I believe had the contract to build the tower. And they had 3 keys, just like missile officers have the 2 keys to launch the missiles. They have 3. 1 key is brought up by an executive from NASA, 1 key by an executive or an engineer from Boeing, and 1 by the engineering company that's actually doing the physical contract construction. And all 3 of them had to insert their keys and rotate them to open the trays, to bring out the drawings. This was how they did quality control, to make sure that nobody made a change to anything without everybody knowing about it. So that was why all that command and control. But that's a launch umbilical tower. So going back to, kit models, you rarely have very complex launch umbilical towers, but we're going to talk about some that do, like the Revell 1:144 scale shuttle with tower, which is an incredibly complex kit. We're going to talk about some other stuff, but we'll start off with the mighty V2. Now, Trey over at Trey's Models sent me these real quick. So you look at that little pad underneath the rocket. That was it. That was what the thing sat on when it launched. A very, very straightforward, very basic system. It worked. I don't want to say how well, but basically
they actually rotated the stand to aim it to where they wanted it to
go. There's a crank on there, and they would literally, once they got they'd run up the gyros and everything, and you had all the pressure. And that is why the V2 was a sitting duck on the ground. And when we had guys doing fighter sweeps, they would look for them. And when they would find the V2s, it took, I think, a couple of hours, at least about an hour to get one. You had to fuel it. You had to get up on the erector. I don't think they transported them fueled. You had all these support vehicles, and all this time you're vulnerable. You're surrounded by, there's the warhead in the vehicle, and there's the toxic fuels that went into it. And if a couple of fighter planes saw you, it was the easiest target in the world, and they apparently they exploded beautifully. Yeah, it was a pretty straightforward. They only had about a 200-mile range, but they were the first man-made thing to go into space.
How many V2 rockets were actually shot up by the Allies?
I forget, but I want to say it was around were shot up by the Allies. Yeah. I've never seen a statistic on that. I have no idea. Might have been just a handful. Might have been 100. I know that, was it the Nordhausen facility? They kept bombing the crap out of it, and they could not break that concrete dome. We wound up having to basically overrun it on the ground. And also, I forget how many V2s they launched. It was a lot more than people realize. I want to say offhand about 1,000. I'm sure one of the glue troopers probably knows. But this was the genesis for the space program, which is really what Wernher von Braun wanted to do. He wasn't interested in weapons, but he made his Faustian bargain to get his rockets built. And when, not Truax, but Goddard, at the end of the war, Robert Goddard, the American, the father of liquid-fueled rockets, who predated them all but couldn't get any funding. When Goddard saw the V2s at the end of the war, he was horrified by how far ahead of us they were. And Goddard, he died just a few months later. He died in 1945, I believe, Robert Goddard. And
Garfield said about 4,000 V2s.
Okay, I didn't know it was that many, but most of them didn't do any real damage. But those that did, there was no way to intercept them. It was literally the shape of things to come, and in the most literal sense, both figuratively and literally. It was the shape of things to come. And of course,
said that the V2 on average killed 3 people.
Now, if you're one of those three people, that sucks. I have to be careful how I word this because I don't want to downplay that. Okay. But when you think what a V2 cost and everything that went into it, that it was, how can I put this without sounding like a total D-bag? It was the least effective way to do that. I'm sure that the U-boats and the Hankels were far more effective. But it was a terror weapon also. And but more than that, they had an episode of Star Trek where, in fact, it's the one that got, I think, was it a Peabody or something? Some big award from Hollywood. City on the Edge of Tomorrow, where Edith Keeler is a peacenik that Kirk saves when they go back in time, and she winds up, her peace movement delays our entry in the war. The Germans perfect the A-bomb, put it on the V2, and they win the war, which is kind of the man in the high castle in a way. And we're just lucky that they never had anything more potent than regular conventional explosives to put on it. And they never got I don't think they ever played with the idea of putting like chemical weapons on it or just radioactive material, because you see where I'm going? The importance of the V2, which, by the way, since we're running down the rabbit hole real quick, the reason the Germans were so ahead of us on rockets was because of the Versailles Treaty. Think about it. World War I ends. The Germans are famous for their artillery. So we're like, you guys can't have any more artillery. Okay, so they don't. Well, what can we use to replace our artillery? Hey, they got these things called rockets. They're not mentioned in the Versailles Treaty. So the Germans put all their effort into rockets. And there you go. So just law of unintended consequences. But anyway, that's kind of where it all began. And the Redstones are clearly a direct descendant of the V2. And right down to a virtually identical launching pad. I think it was identical or bloody close to it. And, the Redstone was just the American V2. And we had we made our own V2s, and, we made the Whack Corporal and Project Bumper and all that stuff, all of it based on V2 tech. And we brought the Germans to the U.S. Von Braun was running, he's pretty much stamped property of the United States Army Ballistic Missile Agency. And they just kept on making them and improving them. Then you have the conflict with the Air Force, and I don't want to get too far into a history lesson here, but you've got the United States Air Force saying missiles are ours, and the Army's going, no, we caught the Germans, we're keeping the Germans, they're ours. And of course, there are American companies starting to make missiles, Convair and these others that have their own scientists and their own ideas. But it turned into a real turf battle, similar to the ones that the Key West Agreement, where the Army and the Air Force agreed that, the Army cannot have any fixed-wing combat aircraft. They all belong to the Air Force, so the Army invests heavily in helicopters. And same thing happens with the rockets. So they finally, if I remember correctly, they drew a 200-mile limit. If it's got a range of 200 miles or less, the Army can have it. If it's over 200 miles, it belongs to the Air Force. So the Army Ballistic Missile Agency in Huntsville has von Braun making all these short-ranged missiles, which is not what he wanted to do. And years later, when the space program kicks off, he's able to wiggle out from under the Army and get over to NASA. I read several books on that. That's a story in its own right. You go want to see a really good documentary about all this. I think it was the BBC did one about 20 years ago called, I believe it was The Space Race or something. It was a two-parter, and it just goes all the way back to von Braun in Germany, all the way up through landing on the moon. And it's a lot of it's reenacted, but it's really well done. But anyway, so getting back to kit models, the kit model you can buy of the Redstone, there's one out there that was the Revell kit. I believe it was 1:110, and it had the whole gantry system with it and everything. And in fact, let me show you. I got it here somewhere. Not that you guys haven't been seeing it already. While I was, that's White Sands.
While you're doing that, Craig Swain asked, I forget which service, Army, Air Force, or Navy, got the Die Glocken?
The what?
Die Glocken? DIEGLOCKE? Diglaki? I don't know what that is.
I'm having
Is that missile?
my thing is having trouble. I'm having trouble with the feed with the comment section. Dadgummit. I hate it when it does this. Okay. Got Die Glocke. I assume he's talking about the Glock pistol. I don't think anybody in our army's bought it yet. Let's see. The German scientists want to. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other story with the German scientists. The SS were ordered to execute all the German scientists at the end of the war, rather than let them get captured by the Americans. That was just good old fashioned. If we can't have them, nobody can. And so von Braun, which is one of the only times he wore his SS uniform, because he was a colonel or a major, there seems to be some debate in the SS, because the SS had taken over the rocket program. And the Glocke is the alleged Nazi UFO. Yeah, that thing, that's an urban myth. But the von Braun knew the Allies wanted him. So he grabbed up his hand-picked guys and arranged from all to, I think it was 148 of them. Operation Overcast, Paperclip was part of Overcast, if I remember right. Overcast, I'm probably going to get this wrong off the top of my head. Overcast was all the Germans we wanted to round up and bring to the States. Paperclip, I think, were the rocket scientists. But anyway, I might have that backwards. But they managed to surrender in mass, and you've probably seen the footage of von Braun coming out of the building with his arm elevated in a cast, because he had been in a traffic accident. And oopsie, that hurt. So getting back to here, okay. So here we have this magnificent build that was in the last viewer's build by Glue Trooper.
Hey, got an interesting question for you.
What?
Why are the gantries painted red?
I believe the red and white in contrast was done for two reasons. One, safety, just higher visibility. Same reason they paint water towers white and red. And also, I believe it was also done for telemetry. It was the same reason they put those black markings. Now, you know what? Since you made the mistake of bringing that up, tangent time number 2.
That wasn't me.
I wasn't even going to get into this, and I didn't download any pictures. We've all talked about it before. I imagine most of you guys are familiar with the famous movie, the Frauenmund, The Woman on the Moon, which was a silent movie made in Germany. What was that famous German director's name who made it? It had all the great special effects. Anyway, I can't believe it's slipping. I tell you what, guys, the older I get, the more I'm slipping gears on the old memory circuits. But the movie was very influential to the very young science nerds of the day, von Braun and his crowd, and Oberth and all of them. And the rocket in the movie, the Woman on the Moon, the German movie, Fritz Lang, thank you, Fritz Lang. I can't believe I forgot that. So what happens is they're all just blown away. It was the Star Wars of its day, or Star Trek, or pick your poison. Speaking of which, when we're done here, I'm going to go watch Dan Monroe just dropped another video, and it's on what happened to Star Wars 77, or as I call it, the real Star Wars. But I don't want to start that argument right now. So anyway,
rabbit hole with Max.
Yeah. So when these guys got up to where they could actually start making rockets, they wanted to paint them black and white like in the movie. But also that had a very legitimate reason for doing that too. And that was for keeping telemetry. If you'll notice, like on the old test V2s, and even the Mercury Redstones, they did the same thing when they came to the U.S. They all had these big black and white stripes painted on them, but every fin was painted a different pattern. That way, because they're filming from a distance and everything, that way, no matter what the rocket was doing, they knew what quarter of the rocket they were looking at, so they could determine roll rate and all this other stuff. And this is something that is done for real legitimate telemetry reasons to this day. That's why you see a lot of test aircraft with all these weird stripes painted all over them. That's why the Snarks, when they were in testing, if you've ever built that Lindbergh Snark that I built a couple of times in 1/48 scale, It's bright red with all these horizontal and angular white stripes. And I actually knew a guy who worked on that program. He chased them in the back of an old F-84. He had the remote control, Jerry Owens, and he was talking about how that was for telemetry. They could take the film back, and by analyzing the film, they could make extremely accurate calculations on how much it was pitching, rolling, yawing, or whatever. So that was what was up with that paint scheme. And of course, these service gantries, which were on rails, which I've got to get this kit when it gets repopped. I've always wanted it. First off, I think the red and white is just strikingly beautiful, but it gives contrast, it gives high visibility, partly safety, and quite frankly, I think maybe even partly aesthetics. It just looked cool.
I want to welcome Darcy Sams, just first time in our group.
Oh, well, welcome aboard, Darcy. So that's where the paint scheme came from. And these kits, I love it when the kits of a model rocket include the gantries. Well, in this case, it's a service gantry, because the Redstone was one of and the V2 are a couple of the only rockets that did not use launch towers. They did have these arms that went up from the ground that popped off and just swung free. But later on, and even the Thor, I think, took off with it. A lot of the early rockets didn't need an actual launch tower. They just needed a pad, and of course, you had to have the service tower. And I meant to make a note who built this. It was in the last viewer's build, VB59, and he lit it and everything else. This is just beautiful. I hope mine comes out looking that good when I ever get around to doing it. So, and the tower just looks great lit up. In fact, where's that picture? That's one of the reasons I used the picture that I used for the, oh, come on, I know I got it in here. Did I not? No, I must not have. Okay. Hold on. Is this it? Nope. I'm going to grab a picture real quick. I thought I had loaded it up here. You know what? I did it last second. Steve and I were just complaining about this on the last live stream about how the new box art, we're not fans. Here it is. Now, I know this is technically inaccurate, but this is just an awesome box art with all the lights and everything on the rocket. Now, of course, Florida has no mountains, so we joke that this is their secret anti-Godzilla base, in the mountains of Colorado or something. But because we all know Godzilla can't climb mountains. But anyway,
we have a mountain.
Huh?
We have a mountain.
We don't have a mountain. Oh God, Dad jokes, Ken, really already. But that's the kind of box art that makes me want to buy it. And the one by Linwood, where you see it from looking up from the ground, I love that one also. So anyway, but the fact that the kit includes a complete service gantry, to me just really adds a lot to it. Because I've got my little Revell Redstone rocket right here, and it has the little base plate just like the V2. And I built this a long time ago, and I like it. And I like the fact that they included the base and the little stand with it. But, it doesn't hold a candle to the whole gantry and everything. Now, this Thor that I was going to bring my Vanguard, but it's so delicate, I know I'd break it. This is pretty delicate, too. Now, this Thor also has the a very nicely detailed base and everything. And I went to several different color photographs to try and figure out the proper paint scheme for these things, and they're not uniform. Some are all yellow, some are yellow and gray, some are yellow and red. I guess they just kept repainting these things. But it has little characters. It has the washing stations for their eyes and everything, in case they get the chemicals. Has the hoses. That's what these little gray units right here are. They're basically, they douse the thing when it launches rockets at the crane. I love kits that include that kind of stuff. I think they're just awesome. That is the I guess it's the Glencoe repop of what I think was an Adams kit. But so you've got all this cool stuff. You can make your own. Now, these are pictures outside of near Holloman. I think that's White Sands. Mr. Markle sent these to me, and if you want to do a little diorama, it gives you an idea what the terrain looks like. But the what? What?
Sarah Jane says, I believe Ken is a member of the Florida Mountain Rescue Team.
Yeah, Florida High Mountain Rangers. So here now, as you guys know, rockets put out a big plume, so there's got to be a hollow space below them. At the Cape, they have the trough. These rockets, they just put them in big ditches like that. But you get a look at the service gantry on these things, and it's mounted on rails, so of course it all just slides out of the way when they launch, which is a great way to do it. But if you want to make one of these things, you can find the plans online, but it gives you an idea. The gantries are so much bigger than the rockets because you have to be able to get all over the rocket with it. In this case, I think they had to be to hoist them into place. And you see the fold down floors so that they have access to decks and everything, which all fold up out of the way. I mean, these things are marvels of engineering in their own right. Nothing compares to the Saturn V, though. That thing had so much stuff on it. But
by the way, that ditch you were referring to is called a flame trench.
Flame trench. I knew that. I knew that. I knew that.
Just tickle in your memory.
Okay. Apparently, and I just was able to dig this up off the internet before I came up here. A glue trooper tried to send me a picture of this build, but it didn't, through Facebook. It didn't come through. Really, guys, if you want to send me pictures, much better just to email them. But anywho, this is of the Arion. This is the Revell kit, the 1-144 kit. And it's one of the rockets that comes with as you can tell, with a launch pad. The one by Heller, I do not believe does. And I thought it might be the same kit, but it's not. According to Scalemates, anyway, they're two separate moldings. And from what I could see, Revell's the only one to repop this. So unless somebody knows something about that, I don't. Please feel free to let us know. But the thing is that the having a gantry with a rocket, I think, just makes so much more of a display out of it, and I really like that. But you want to get in a mother of all the displays, the one that will drive you absolutely bonkers. Revell did the 1-144 shuttle launch tower. Now, they sold it as a launch tower with a shuttle, but they already made the shuttle. And I think they made this launch tower before anybody could really get close to it to get all the necessary drawings, because some people have complained about some inaccuracies. And I look at how complicated that thing is. I'm like, yeah, duh, you think? They're kit model makers, not NASA engineers, although there's probably a little crossover. But this thing, I went and saw some unboxing and building videos on it. That is a unholy nightmare in a box. And they actually make a photo etch kit. I don't think it comes with it, but this guy was doing all the photo etch and everything. I was like, I would be a stark, raving, schizophrenic, blithering idiot if I tried to build that. More so than I am already. And you can get it with or without. And they normally run $300-ish. I did find one that's on sale on eBay that looks to be complete for $200 plus $22 shipping. So, and I think it's actually the one that includes the shuttle. And a lot of guys who make these things, they wind up getting crawlers to go with them and adding all this stuff to it. And I can understand why you're going to go in that kind of detail. But hopefully it's going to end up museum, because these guys put them under these plexiglass cases, because there's no way you can dust or clean something like that without breaking it. And you probably can't even get to half the nooks and crannies. And I think the average build time for someone who makes like a really nice build of this is somewhere like 2 years. And I assume they're only working on it part-time to hold on to their sanity. I have heard some complaints about the, Lego actually makes some launch umbilical towers, but I've read a lot of online complaints that things are crooked and it doesn't fit. It's a Lego, But I don't know about these kits. But if you're going to do that with the photo etch, you're going to have a photo etch bender. You have to have because so many small parts. They say they come without any flash or anything. It's really nicely detailed, but it's just racks and racks of gantry work and everything. And I assume you have to pretty much pre-paint most of it, because you're not going to be able to get to it once it's built. And I mean, I suppose you could reach in with a brush, but that, as much as I would love to have one of those on display, it and by the way, that launch that facility was made from the old Apollo launch umbilical tower. That is, that red center section is part of the loop, but they cut the top of it off because they didn't need the whole thing. And the launch umbilical tower itself is just, I mean, it's got all kinds of plumbing and wiring, electronics, and it's an impressive piece of design work. The and of course, you can 3D print a lot of stuff for it too. But most, I think there's some specialty resin companies that will make like the crawler and that kind of stuff. So, but if you ever get one of those and you want to do a nice job on it, that's where you set it off on a table by itself and work on it when you're in the mood, and just give yourself a year or two to make it.
Stuart Gregory says, I built 1 to 1/700th ships with a lot of photo edge, and I'm just fine. Just fine. Just fine.
Just fine. Yeah. Oh, by the way, bringing on that very subject, one other thing that I've seen in a couple of write-ups is it says 1 to 144 scale, but a lot of the people have complained that that's not accurate. It's actually a little too small. Probably some have said it's a 1 to 160 scale. Some have said it's actually a 1 to 170 scale. Apparently, they just made it to fit the model shuttle that they already had. Now, I cannot speak to the accuracy of that. I'm just telling you what I read online about it. So,
what scale was the shuttle?
Well, it was supposedly 1 to 144, but Ken, a lot of kits are off scale. There's nothing uncommon about that. And so, anyway, if anybody wants to know what not to get me for Christmas, there you go. Because this is one of those gifts where the person gives it to you, and you're undecided whether they love you or hate you, because it's just a little bit of both.
They just wanted to get it out of their stash,
or they just wanted to torment you. What is that? Give it to Mikey; he'll eat anything, you know. Give it to Maxie; he'll build anything.
Max will build it in 2 days.
No. The crawler would take longer than that to build. Another thing, if you really want to just give yourself a case of the insanities, a lot of you guys might remember that Apollo Soyuz, although they used an Apollo, they didn't use a Saturn V because they weren't going to the moon. So they basically put it on what was more or less, I think, a Saturn IV-B stack, and which is basically 8 redstones. But they had to build what they called the milk stool to put it on. And because it was too short to go on the, because again, the launch umbilical tower is such a massive piece of equipment, you don't just modify it that easily. It was easier to modify the rocket. So let's just build a one-off, milk stool to put the rocket on it. I always think of it as a baby rocket on a high chair. But, and you can get aftermarket, like I think resin kits, or you could probably also 3D print it these days. But, you start 3D printing too much, you're no longer model building, I think. But, oh yeah, I forgot. That's right. It was used for, well, depends on which Skylab mission, because Skylab itself, oh gosh, I'd have to go back and look now.
Skylab was the 3rd stage, wasn't it?
Well, Skylab, I think they actually used okay, Ken, did they actually use a Saturn V, but it didn't have a 3rd stage because the 3rd stage was the Skylab.
Right.
So
exactly.
It used the first 2 stages.
Some kind of spacer between the Skylab and the top of the 2nd stage, I guess, to balance the rocket out or something.
Well, probably. Okay, right. But when they sent the astronauts up, it was this configuration. So they would have used this about 4 times. I had totally forgotten about that. Thank you. And but Skylab was cobbled together, the Apollo Applications Program. It was cobbled together out of equipment basically that was already paid for, because once we'd walked on the moon, they're like, okay, we beat the Russians, on to the next shiny thing for politics, and the money got cut. And NASA has been in justification mode ever since. It's funny. Until Neil Armstrong walked to the moon, supposedly NASA had control of as much as 16% of the national economy. I mean, like they said, it's like a big sign in the sky. You could waste anything but time. But once they'd made Kennedy's goal, the Congress reeled that money in so fast. And so...
Well, there was also a war going on.
Yeah, I was going to say that in Vietnam. And one could argue we've never really recovered from that, but that's another story.
That's a different rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's a complete... But, so there's something you can build if you really want to drive yourself bonkers. So let's take a look at some of the kits. Let's see, I already showed that.
Brian said something interesting. He said they used the Saturn 1B for Apollo 7 without the stool. The gantry had been modified after Apollo 7.
I think Apollo 7 may have gone off a different launch umbilical tower, though. I'm not really... I have to look that up. Yeah, because that's right. They didn't have the milk stool on 7, and it did go up on a 1B. And they may not have finished the lit by that point. So let's look at some of the kits that are available for you to buy, kids. This is just a mishmash of them I put together. We've got, of course, the Thor and countless V2s, which, to their credit, a lot of the V2s come with launching platforms, which, like I say, really aids to it. We've got...
Steve made it.
Hey, hang on. Let me dial him in here. Okay. Merge with Ken. Hold on, Ken. Hang on. Let me hit the merge.
3, 2, 1, blast off.
Gotcha. All right. You were live and on the air, caller. What?
Blowing rock? Really? They have rocks that blow there?
What? What are we talking about?
Where Steve's at right now. He says he's in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I'm just curious about what rocks are blowing around.
Not to be confused with Flatweed, North Carolina.
Boy,
And if anybody's from North Carolina, that's okay. Everybody makes Florida jokes, so suck it up.
what, Steve? What'd you say?
You guys from Florida just, because you have such flat, it's called swamp, is really what it is.
That's what it is.
No. We have mountains. Didn't you hear that conversation?
Oh, Lord. Here we go again.
No. Space Mountain.
Okay.
The highest point in Miami is the dump where they have Mount Trashmore. So anyway.
Been there.
Yeah, been there, seen that. But most of the kits like this that have gantries or something that come with a rocket or at least a base, these are, well, I don't know, the Thor, the ITC Thor missile base, which actually quote unquote works, which it actually kind of does. But again, that's more of a toy thing, with play value. But it does do a lot of cool stuff. And I've seen a video of a guy who had one and got it working. If you find one, people want a bloody $1,000 for them if they're complete.
They want 2,500.
Oh, jeez, well, that's because they're rare. You see, there's somebody finds a molds, they can just repop that bad boy.
Bill Paul said something interesting. He said Apollo 7 was launched from LC-34. The reason they went with the milk stool is that it was cheaper to modify the LUT than reactivating LC-34.
Yeah, that sounds right. I knew it didn't go off of 39, which is where the other Apollos went off of. I used to know all this stuff off the top of my head, but that was 20 years ago. I read every book I could get on the space program. Rocket Ranch. By the way, useless side note, the
Prepare for rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole number 3. Here we go. We see the big rocket, the launch umbilical tower, the mobile launch platform. Looks like the crawler's already gone. So this is, we got the big service gantry, the big gray one. Below this, we see this gigantic concrete, essentially pad. Now, of course, you got the flame trench in the middle, but you see this concrete pad going around the base down there, right? What a lot of people don't know is there are actually computer rooms down in there.
Oh, those must have been some seriously protected computers.
They were by feet, like 13 feet of concrete. It gets better, Ken. They were manned, but not during the launch, of course. But these were not just remote computers stuck in there. They were actually had consoles and chairs and offices and everything else. Well, I don't know if I call it an office, but What it was they would go down there and conduct all the tests with the rocket and did it. You know, they had all the machinery right there because Ken, you'll appreciate this being a techie, computer guy. In those days, given the speed that computers moved at, the physical distance from the launch pad to mission control, to launch control, the mile or two away it was, actually made a difference.
Yeah, I can understand that.
By having the computers right under the rocket, it compressed, and you and I think ever so slightly so much, such a tiny amount, but given the speed the computers that era moved at, it mattered. You know, when you're debating 140,000th of a second, you know, an extra mile of cable has and the loss of signal en route has an impact on that. This way, certain computers were running on automatic, all set up in advance, but it was all being done right there. And
that's why they built the tray round. The Cray computers. That's why they made them round, to minimize the length of the wire on the backplane.
Yeah, it makes sense. I didn't realize that was why, but I just thought they wanted you to have a bench.
That was where the cooling equipment was.
Yeah, liquid cooling. Yeah. So anyway, there's your use true. But a lot of these kits didn't have them, but a lot of the Revell kits did. I actually have a couple of these. I only have the lacrosse truck with that weird curved launcher because it took off going in a rotating. I have that one built, and I have the original comp for the artwork behind it. I have the Honest John, a repop that was given to me that I haven't built yet, but it comes with a launcher. I did build the Corporal missile on the top, and it comes with a very complex. It comes with a vehicle that was designed to transport it, and it's actually a very involved kit. Revell really knocked it out of the park. They did a great job with it. That TP looking thing behind it, that tripod's actually a quad pod. That is the launcher for the missile. So it gets towed in the configuration you see it. Then when it gets there, those four arms come down, the erector goes up, locks the missile in place, those arms go back into place, all right? Then the erector comes down and they drive away, and the missile's on a V2 style launch pad. And the model, all this stuff works. I mean, you can articulate it. The arms or the bands around the rocket are coming. They move, so you can unlimber the rocket. The arms come down. You can pose the kit however you want to. It has a surprising amount of functionality, and everything fit very nicely. It's very detailed and really good fit. Revell really did a great job on that Corporal missile and transporter. The Araby High I haven't built. I don't know if it comes with a launch rail or not. The Hawk, I can't tell you about its Corporal missile. It looks like it just comes on the stand. I can tell you nobody would be standing that close when they launched that bloody thing, but and the radar wouldn't be that close.
Celebrating Vintage Model Kit says, the guy in the red hat on the Araby High, lose a bet?
He just doesn't like to sweat when he works, because the guy under the asbestos is both getting cancer and sweating to death at the same time. What'll get him first, heat prostration or,
What's the guy in the green suit doing standing at the front of it?
Well, he's wearing what looks like a chemical suit. He just took his helmet off, so apparently he is thoroughly disgusted with what these other two guys are doing and wants to leave.
Araby just came with a trailer.
It just came with a trailer?
Yeah.
Well, that's not nothing. But and you have to understand, with the Corporal missile and later on the Lance missile, these were nuclear weapons that belonged to the Army. So they were limited in range. And the Corporal could have a regular warhead, conventional warhead, or a nuke. And I'm sure the Europeans were thrilled to see the American Army driving around with nuclear missiles on trucks. What could go wrong? But it's a great kit. The Honest John, which is the lower center, that missile had issues, but it was early technology. Even the lacrosse is actually a guided missile, but it was too easy to jam, and I don't think the Army. I mean, they kept it around as a deterrent value, but a lot of these early missiles never really lived up to what people thought. The hype. But their real job was deterrence. Nobody in their right mind wanted to actually use one in combat. And you'll notice the lacrosse, which, by the way, this lacrosse is set up for test. The red, the white, and the black paint scheme. That's a test. That would be like out at White Sands or something. When they were actually fielded, I believe they were just painted olive drab, as I would imagine all these systems were once they were out in the field. And but olive drab, even though I painted my corporal olive drab, it's kind of boring looking, But obviously, you're doing box art and trying to sell the kit. These red and white contrasting and black contrasting paint schemes pop a lot more. And
proximity suit with no gloves. Government safety standards.
Well, it was the 50s, baby. We did things different back then. We weren't scared.
Come on, take all those people vacationing in Las Vegas out on a bus and let them stand up on a hill and watch them explode.
Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, Steve, you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, back in the 50s in Las Vegas, that was kind of like a...
that was like a cruise ship excursion.
Yeah, that was like a perk that the casinos had. Hey, come on, you're a high roller. Would you like to go out and, watch an atomic bomb test and have a picnic? And they'd load them in a bus, take them out to the range, and you get up on a high spot, and they'd stand there and watch them explode.
Oh, Garfield saying The Honest John made its movie debut in the movie Rodan. The guy in the green said, I need a cigarette. Yeah. Screw your toxic fumes. I need a smoke.
Which was kind of ridiculous because you took your best customers and eventually you killed them off early.
Yeah. Lance is talking about the Davy Crockett. For those who are unaware, the Davy Crockett was basically a glorified bazooka or recoilless rifle with a small nuke on it. And if you had to use the weapon system, the first part of the checklist was dig a trench for you or your people to hide in because you're inside the blast radius. Yeah, what could go wrong? Watch Radio Bikini. Nothing like a nose. Yep, nothing like a human nose to detect a vapor leak. Hey, John, take your helmet off. It's safe. Don't worry. Everybody, let's wait and see what happens to John.
Wow. Hill says some casinos had rooftop watching of nuclear explosions.
It's not like you were going to keep it a secret.
You weren't close enough if you were on the roof.
Nah. Come on, anybody can get on the roof, Don't you want to get close and really see the action?
Doesn't that kind of make you wonder if Las Vegas is close enough to see a nuclear explosion? Maybe you shouldn't be there for one?
Ken, why do you think the place glows so bright at night?
They painted everything in radium, huh?
Yeah. Covered in radium.
I thought it was Hoover Dam that generated all that power.
That's just what they want you to think. This little in the center, although it's got wheels on it, that is a aftermarket V2 rocket launch pad you can buy. And one thing I've got to say, when I bought some of these kits, like sadly Horizon Models was making rockets and they ceased operation recently. But hopefully somebody will pick them up because they make really good kits. They are kind of the rockets what Williams Brothers are to racing airplanes of the 30s. But some of these kits, the detail on these little portable launch pads with all the tiny little crank handles and everything, I mean, they didn't skip a step. And I'm really impressed with a lot of these modern models and the detail in them. And I'm sure they spend a lot of time in museums making drawings.
Yeah, Kraut. Does NORAD still exist? Oh, yeah. They still watch for Santa Claus every year.
Nah. I don't think they're in. I don't think they're in Cheyenne Mountain anymore, though. And I've got this. I've got this missile set. I've got one still in the box and one that I opened up and started on it. It's just one of those things that's become a permanent back burner project. One of these days I will fix it. And, those things are a little more detailed than you realize when you start painting them. Like, holy crap, there actually is a lot of markings on these things. And, but they look pretty when they're done. Atlantis, STEM, monogram models. We're desensitizing your children to the threat of nuclear war.
Fred, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, said in the 60s, I remember a model kit of a Nike missile, and there were Nike bases around.
That's right.
Old Nike missile base we used to fly around in Montgomery County.
Nike Hercules and the Nike Ajax. Nike Hercules is the one that had the 4 booster engines on it, and the Ajax had 1.
They're exactly, 5 miles from the end of the runway?
Is that what that was?
20 cars over there.
I think so. I remember flying over them, and the instructor said, look down, there's the old Nike bases. I was like, oh, cool.
And those were there supposedly to prevent, like shoot down Russian bombers and stuff if they ever, got foolish and decided they wanted to come play rocket tag. And I could have swore I downloaded more pictures than this.
There's one on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge that is a museum, but it's actually quasi-operational.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Go there, they go through the drill, they push the button, the rocket comes up, and it's a pretty cool tourist thing. But there's tons of them that are abandoned that the bones of them are still all over the country outside of major cities.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Steve, because about 15, 20 years ago, I saw one in Georgia, I think it was, go up for sale. And I was thinking, what would be cooler than to live in an old Nike Ajax missile battery? It had 4 elevators. Now, they only go down about 8 feet, okay? So, there was room inside for the missile and for the men to work on it, but it wasn't like a tall ceiling. It was still a little tight inside. And they had steps going down there with the doors and the blast doors, and one of the elevators still worked. And I thought it's too narrow for a car, so you're not going to do the whole Green Hornet thing. But I thought I could put my motorcycle on it. And what impressed people, like, let me get my motorcycle, hit a button, the thing opens up and it rises up with your bat cycle on it. But 3 of them had already, apparently these things, since they hadn't been maintained, 3 of them were routinely trapping rainwater and were basically swimming pools. And I was like, nope. They even still had the building because the people lived above ground in a barracks. And, but I was...
well, if you saw the movie Day of the Dead, that's basically where they wind up.
Ah.
It was a missile base, and they had the elevator.
Yeah. Well, I found another one down near Fort Lauderdale, near Miami. Now, it wasn't a missile base. It was a AT&T. It was a decommissioned AT&T communications backup communications hub. So it was all nuke-proof and everything. And it had a garage on top, and it did have an elevator that a vehicle could go down in, which would have sold me on it right there. Okay.
Didn't we go look at that place?
We talked about it. We never actually went out there. But you also had the elevator that went down, and you had complete below-ground living facility. It even had the old 50, 60 style heavy gauge steel furniture in there. The office chairs. I was like, this is so cool.
Meanwhile, they had those things all over the country.
Oh, yeah. Mainly around the periphery of the country, but yeah.
Yeah, it was like a network in the event there was an attack that they could still communicate.
Craig Swain saying he has some folks in South Carolina living former coastal defense batteries. Yeah. It doesn't take much to heat and cool them because the walls are so thick. And the Milwaukee Nike station, there you go. The problem with living in a Nike Ajax bunker, nearly all those are super fun sites. Yeah, God knows what kind of fuel they're using.
That's what Val says. What? No pictures of Canadians' favorite rocket, the Beaumont?
Yes, that's right. There have people who have turned ICBM missile sites into homes. One of them in upstate New York went up for sale a few years ago, and it has a 2,000 or 2,200 foot paved runway. And but they said there's a condition if you move in here. There are large, really big, like car-sized concrete slabs on top of the missile silos that are required to be there by law. The Russians fly over and photograph them the satellites, make sure nobody's trying to reactivate them. But I'm like, man, live underground in a missile silo? Okay, that's just cool.
Mystic Model Ship says, in Illinois, we had a Nike base in the middle of a golf course.
4! Yeah, nothing like rockets lifting off to foul lanes. But
and there's Wendell says there's a Titan 1 missile silo in Washington State.
Well, a couple of these things, it's not that they're active, but like Steve was saying, they keep enough equipment running. They can give people demos of here's how it used to work and everything. Yeah, that was the Jupiter C. Actually, I think it was a Juno. They call it Jupiter C. As I understand it, and I'm probably getting this backwards, it's a Jupiter C when it carries a military payload. It's a Juno when it carries a scientific payload. And everyone calls it the Jupiter C, but it was, in fact, technically, I believe it was actually the Juno. And I should have that.
Bummer says Nike Ajax engine was a derivative of a World War I liquid propellant JATO engine.
There you go. That's how you do it. Okay.
I guess if it would.
I'm going to let you guys compare something here. This is the one Steve and I were talking about that was such a cool box art. And here, and I think we talked about this last week, here's the one they're using now, which I just am not inspired by.
Barry said, hire an artist to paint over the silo in the open position.
Yeah, that's when a Russian Wetworks team shows up. But the I having grown up especially in Florida in the 60s and 70s, I was a space nerd from the get-go. And ironically, there weren't that many models available to me of them, so I usually built airplanes.
Oh, cool. Listen to this. Who513 says, I was working as a rigging group on Star Trek First Contact at the Titan silo at Green Valley, Arizona. I was wearing woodland BDU trousers and a black t-shirt. I went up to my truck on the surface.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, since we're probably going to talk about this more next week, but I will show you guys something. I believe Mr. Cassidy sent me this. We're shifting gears here for a second, but Mr. Cassidy, as a kid, used to go out to where they filmed Baa Baa Black Sheep, and he went out a few times, and apparently security on these sets wasn't as tight back then as it would be today. Plus, his dad was in the entertainment business, so it helped him get sort of a backstage pass. But for you guys who remember the television show Baa Baa Black Sheep, these are some of his personal behind-the-scenes photos of the set and everything. And he sent me a bunch of others I didn't have a chance to download, so we'll probably work those into the next live stream or one after it.
Yeah, the thing says, turns out Russian DSATs had picked me up in uniform and thought the bird was going hot. Just making a movie.
That was Dan Blocker's son, Dirk Blocker. And he's got a picture of Robert Conrad. It's this stuff. Now, you guys will notice, though, that they... there's Dirk Blocker, John Larroquette. I forget that other actor's name. I've seen in a bunch of stuff. Anyway, you guys will notice that the Corsairs are all painted flat blue with just a star on the side. None of them have individual numbers or anything on them, even though real Marine Corps aircraft did, because obviously they need the airplanes to be interchangeable. They only had, I think, 5 of them to shoot the whole series. They may have had more at one point, but and it was like, I remember when if you guys remember the Mike Douglas show, Conrad was on there. They were actually shooting it from the set of Baa Baa Black Sheep, and Conrad was talking. He said the guys, every airplane was flown by the guy who owned it. Okay, which no surprise there. And they got it was I think it was $500 a day for the airplane just to have it there, and then $1,500 a day to operate it, which back in 77, 76 you could probably do. And so there's but they had to be able to use although one of the airplanes we all remember had the big arrow on the tail and on the wing, which was not a Black Sheep marking, but this way they could, and I imagine that's probably cheap watercolor put on it, they could wash off. But that's how they were able to use the airplanes interchangeably. You'd have to worry about which airplane was in camera. Same reason Matt Dillon always wore a shrimp pink colored shirt. That way they could all use all the same establishing footage and everything over and over again. Made wardrobe a lot simpler. And
why does none of the Corsairs with Air Force markings have a tail hook?
No, they're Marine Corps. There's no Air Force markings. Somebody said the guy in the blue shirt was Pappy Bollington. I know he was a tactical advisor. Yeah, it looks like him. There in the background. And you can see there's John Larroquette sitting down, and I don't think that's can't make out the name on the back. There's Dirk Blocker looking at us, and but
soccer war.
And just
Greg Swain says several of those Corsairs were veterans of the soccer war. What's that?
Yeah, you never heard of the soccer war, the 3-day war, the football war? What was that?
Yeah.
Was that Honduras and Guatemala? They were having issues, border issues that erupted into a short war, and I think the Hondurans, if I remember correctly, the Hondurans are flying. The Guatemalans had Mustangs, and the Hondurans had Corsairs. Actually, I think both sides had Corsairs, which caused some confusion. And there were several areas. In fact, I think the last piston engine against piston engine dogfight was in that war. And there's one pilot who shot down 3 enemy planes. They mostly shot down Corsairs. I don't know if any Mustangs were lost. And yeah, I don't know. I guess the Zeros were kept since they weren't part of the daily filming. My guess is they only called them in when they needed them. He does have some pictures of the valves flying. You know what? I didn't download them yet, so they're still in my email. So, but we'll cover that next week. And yeah, the Corsairs. A lot of the stock footage, you do have the Corsair with like I said, the arrow on it. But you have to remember they're making a television show. They've only got so much budget and everything, and there are only so many Corsairs. They had post-war Corsairs, and they had all kinds of different dash models. Some had 4-bladed props, some had 3-bladed props. Some had a 20mm cannon, some had the 650s. It was a room because they had to work with what they had. When they had a dogfight with the Zeros, of course the Zeros are made out of AT-6s, so you'd see the Corsairs flying at half or full flaps, while the little T6 is going for all it's worth, trying to, get some aerial footage and everything. Corsair did shoot down a Mustang, okay. And what's his name? Showtime 112. I actually watched his videos on the soccer war recently, and there were some people were getting killed. It was a real shooting war, but it was, to my knowledge, it was the last direct conflict between World War II era aircraft. And they, I don't know, half dozen airplanes, I guess, got shot down. Yeah, all of the Japanese aircraft from on Black Sheep side were ones made for Tora Tora Tora. I actually saw 3 of them up in, oh God, where was that? It was one of my last flights where I retired. It was somewhere, was it upstate New York or somewhere? I don't even remember where it was, but I grabbed a picture of them. Of course, they're all polished up and looking brand new, which a military plane wouldn't. But
that would make for some interesting box art with a Corsair and a P-51 in a fight with each other.
Ken, that's not a bad idea, actually. I mean, think about it. You know what? You're actually onto something there. Since everybody and their brother makes Mustangs and Corsairs, any of the model companies that have them could just go get some pictures of the aircraft during the soccer war and make that a marketing thing, you know?
Get Mike on the phone quick.
Yeah. And it was like take them off and land them. It's not like that Shackleton.
Max.
What?
Max.
What?
You were buffering there for a minute.
Even the computer gets tired of listening to me.
Other people are seeing it too.
Okay. I don't know if that's their connection or my connection.
Chuck saw it and I saw it.
Huh. Is everything normalized now?
Yes, you're good. You're good now.
Okay.
Just thought I'd let you know.
No, good to know. I mean, stuff happens.
And Bill apparently he got it too. Bill Campbell.
Okay. Well, apparently it worked itself out. Max was maxing blonde for review. I cannot hear Ken. Consider yourself fortunate. Talking.
I could be heard.
And that, Ken, is the reason I keep talking.
Oh, boy, that cruise puts you in a feisty mood.
Arr!
Getting a little brutal here tonight.
And the blood will be flowing down at the arena tonight. My phone kicked out, but the big screen is working. Okay. Ooh, Ken, burn. Burn, dude. Robert Ginty, that's his name. That was the actor on the left. Tall one, yeah.
I guess we're going to back to the movies.
Okay.
Call the fire trucks. Call the fire trucks, Ken, for the burn. For the burn. We have fun, don't we? So,
Hobby Lobby, it's probably nothing there.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Are we conducting personal business during the live stream here? You know.
It sure sounds like it.
We're trying to decide whether or not to go to Hobby Lobby in Boone or not.
It's 8 o'clock at night. Unless you're going to buy a model.
Yeah, well, the problem is they hardly ever rotate the assortment, so probably no.
Where's the red rocket gantry? Okay, that was at the Cape. Unfortunately, there was the one of them out at what I think was White Sands, New Mexico, but the gantry unfortunately succumbed to corrosion, which is a serious problem for anything made of steel and fluid. What?
I'm sorry.
What kind of noise?
It's Linda making the noise. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That sounds like somebody dragging a dead body across gravel.
Now, how would you know what that sounds like, Ken?
Tic Tacs.
Yeah, in fact, one of the actors was on Jag and on Magnum. God, I forget his name offhand. The round-faced one played French in Baa Baa Black Sheep, but he ended up on both Jag and Magnum.
The crowd said, "Saturday Night Styrian and Talking Smack. We rock." Or Smart, either one.
Stealth 91, you're louder than the Warbirds. We'll need you to move your hold out some more. Do you have something colored? Yes. No. Yes, I sort of. It's behind me, but my guess it's reflecting off the screen, or it could just be pulses in the screen that I could turn the lamp on here and put some light on my face, but I'll watch. I'll just show you what happens when I do that. First off, you can see me better, and that usually gets down thumbed. Whoa! Dadgummit.
Yeah, it gets scary.
There, that changes the tone of things.
For the ride home,
it's just not as mysterious this way. I have right here in a chair just behind me, the little astronaut that puts out the stars and the ethereal glow. That's how I do that, but I have to put a block here or it winds up on the side of my face as well. And
everybody says, I thought it was the LSD kicking in.
And all I got to do is hold my hand in front of it, you see, and it all goes away, because it's just a little projection. But I tried out a little production value here, Not much, we're humble, but
very little.
Thank you. That's what I was aiming
for. The crowd says, Max glows.
Yeah. Okay. Let there be light. Very little. Gives me Fremen eyes. I noticed that earlier. Wonder if I take the glasses off, it'll still do it. Of course, I do have blue eyes, so it just brings out the blue in my eyes. Ken, that's what we were literally just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm a few seconds behind, so.
Yeah, but I was just talking about on the phone. That's instantaneous. Okay.
Celebrating vintage kids wants to know, did you get a tan on the cruise?
Actually, my wife told me I did, which I don't normally do. I normally go straight from lily white to lobster pink. But apparently I actually did get a hint of a tan. I got a little orange man in my skin there. So I made it a point, though, to I limited my sun exposure because I've been out on boats all day, and it did not end well. But
Max's production values will double once he goes to 16
There you go. But when I was a kid, I was like, I'd love a 16 millimeter, but I can't afford to develop that kind of film. But I like the idea that it had sound with it. And I was like, oh, if I had a 16 millimeter. Then I discovered videotape. And I wanted, but here's the problem, Ken. And since you were the AV guy, you'll appreciate this. I wanted to get into the audio-visual club. You ready for this, guys? I wasn't cool enough to get into AV club. How low can one sink?
I mean, that's where the nerds go.
I know. When you are rejected by the nerds, that's like being kicked off this. That's like being kicked out of the neighborhood by the homeless people. And
the crowd says, Max's show is so much fun. I forgo motorcycle riding for the fun.
But
celebrating vintage kids says, the nerds rejected you?
What can I say? They were short-sighted. 172 viewers. Woo! New record. What, the 8mm had an audio band? Actually, I did try the old tape recorder film and try to cue it up thing, and yeah, it just, no. Even with the Pompadour, I think that's what scared them off. They were just jealous. Audio-visual. AV Club was audio-visual. The thing was, I knew they had access to video equipment. That meant I could shoot all I want, and it didn't cost anything because you could record over it. And you have to understand, when I was making home movies as a kid, a Super 8mm, I started in regular 8. And I'm talking about the roll of film that you had to wind in and close the side, and crank the handle up to wind the spring, that kind of stuff. And I thought, man, when I got a battery-operated Super 8mm with a cartridge loader, I was slick. And but it was like $8 to develop a roll of that stuff, and I had $1 a week allowance. So, you could have got out, and I could have gone out and tried to find a job, but that would have involved work, and I wanted to be a movie star, not they flood.
Radio and TV in high school.
But you know what? I actually did get to do a little bit of AV stuff, and I always loved playing with movie projectors and video cameras and stuff like that. And My parents got me a lot of 8mm projector so I could go out and watch my own movies. I was literally the guy dangling Star Trek models on black wire at night with a flashlight on it, and that stuff's all long gone. Well, actually, well, yeah, all that stuff's long gone. I still have a few 8mm. It's that if you saw my retirement montage, that yellow Luscombe taking off, that was me flying the airplane. That was shot with our Super 8. Bill Hall did it, and he 77, I think. So I still have a few of the old 8mm movies transitioned to digital, but I would literally sit there, trying to put the little I had to scratch the film to try and put phaser beams on there, and of course it looked like the screen just went bloody green. It was horrible.
Too bad you weren't in our high school. We let anybody in, and we had a videotape recorder and a camera that we all had lots of fun with.
Yeah, there were film
we used
projectors.
to make videos of people disappearing.
It was funny. You guys should know. I was just thinking about those old projectors earlier today because the Army used to show, and of course in high school and ROTC, we were always watching military training films because they would just give them to the ROTC class. So, I'm in basic training. Like, does anybody know what this is? This is an M129 grenade launcher, sir. Those are the wrong rounds. Those belong on a Cobra. The M203 uses the short rounds. And the officers are looking at them like, how does this idiot know this? I saw it in an ROTC training film. That actually happened. I was at Fort Campbell. We were going to the grenade range. I was the M203 gunner. And everybody was supposed to get to fire 6 grenades. Real live, boom, 40mm grenades out of the M203. For those that don't know, the M203, if you ever saw Scarface, let me introduce you to my little friend. That was a Hollywood mock-up of an M16 with an M203 grenade launcher. It was not real. It was actually a 37mm tube that the guys had just built. So
Ken, you made videos of people disappearing?
Yeah, and reappearing.
I didn't know you were Italian.
So Ken, you take films of the people you disappear. That could be used as evidence against you at the trial.
Well, usually it was me that was disappearing.
Oh, professional victim status.
So you were a magician.
Yes, I would snap my fingers and I would disappear, and then I would reappear. That was not easy to do.
We watched Killer Bee. Yeah. So anyway,
what's it going to be, Ken? Turkey?
But
yes, I'm getting the turkey.
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
That they can hear you.
He'd like the turkey, please. Hold the mayo. This is what I get for holding it at dinner time.
Like?
Some of us don't get to eat until this is over. And then I'm going to watch Dan Monroe's thing on Star Wars.
See, that's what Monica does. She rates the video. If it's not good, he doesn't eat. See, that's how it works. That's what keeps him on his toes. Either it's bad, you don't get fed. If it's good, okay.
But
that's Max's new diet.
Well, clearly it ain't working. Of course, we just came off a cruise ship where my motto was, there are no rules. Carpe diem, baby. But anyway, we went to the grenade range, and the guys the officers are, sir, this doesn't fit, and they're trying to shove these 40mm grenades into the M203, and they won't go in all the way. And I'm like, sir? And he's like, yes. It's like, those are for the M129, the 40mm grenade launcher on the Cobra. They're not made to be shot through an M203. How do you know that? I saw a training film on ROTC about it. And they opened the box, sure enough, M123. Somebody had sent us grenades for a Cobra, and which are about that much longer. And if you do manage, and you can force one into the tube, and if you do that, make it go boom, boom is just what it's going to go. Well, it's buffering again.
Yeah, Bill wants to know: did I throw down some gunpowder and duck out in the explosion? No, we just stopped the recorder and started it back up after I moved out of frame. But we did have things called flash pods, which was magnesium that we would ignite. Those were fun.
Yes.
We used to set them off
Children, magnesium, and matches always ends up so well. At least if somebody's recording it.
That too. Oh, we did lots of interesting
Why does my freaking nose always want to itch when I'm on camera? Good God.
Yeah, I graduated in 74. We had a lot of fun with that camera. We did all kinds of crazy things.
So yeah, well, I remember I was always. It got to the point with me if everybody saw my video or my movie camera, people suddenly got real scarce real fast.
Have you ever heard of video feedback?
I got some feedback on some of my videos. Does that count?
No. What you do is you point the camera at the monitor, and it's kind of like being in a room with mirrors on both sides of you that reflect back and forth. It's really cool.
Sounds like a test for epilepsy. But the one of the things is that I love to photograph my models. And, oh, by the way, another thing I was going to bring up. A lot of you guys have already seen today's video where those wonderful photographs, the same gentleman, Mr. Cassidy, who provided the Black Sheep photos, those were the ones he used some other photos to do those great black and white blends with his models, which are just this as good as you can do. I mean, I was really, given the 70s tech, I was really impressed. Well, I could not resist using the theme to Baa Baa Black Sheep as an outro sort of post-credit thing, right? It did not take YouTube 5 minutes to tell me that it could not be monetized. Well, duh. But here's the part. I thought it would say the music you're using, Black Sheep Squadron, or something like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I knew that was risk. But hold on. Let me read what it... I got to get my other glasses. Good God. You're going to, guys... Somebody can explain this to me. Okay. Oh, you found the photos? Okay. There's the photo that he meant to send me of his Revell Ariane rocket. Okay, so... pilot episode... It was out at Indian Dunes. It's from YouTube. I don't think I deleted it because I wanted to read it. Here we go. This is my email from YouTube. Copyrighted content has been detected in your video. Max's models today, Saturday, blah, blah, blah. The visibility, yeah. Content used. Okay. Now, it's got to be the Black Sheep Squadron music, right? Because that's the only thing I used other than my own music, which Lou made for me.
This is your microphone.
Oh, so the name of the content used, which is apparently the actual name of the Black Sheep Squadron, Soldat du Hip Hop by L'Ami Ouil, owners SME. I have no... Oh, you can't read that. I have no idea what Soldat du Hip Hop is, but I'm like, I wonder if it tagged the wrong piece of music, because all it does is note recognition. Just like, which is the other thing we're going to talk about here in just a second. Well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it now. The AI,
By the way, before you do that, Rob Altus says, Max, you're an enabler. I just bought a Corsair on 172nd. I always love that.
My next model I'm going to build is that Corsair that I just got the other day, because I didn't realize it was Jacksonville Naval Air Station, the reserve unit. And I was like, okay, I'm building it. It's actually on my desk as soon as I finish the Kubelwagen. Or probably while I'm working on the Kubelwagen for my Remember, guys, we're doing a D-Day build. It's due June 5th. All right, so anything D-Day, any D-Day, doesn't have to be just the Normandy invasion, but it's got to be D-Day. I don't care if it's an LST, a fighter plane, something that has to do with one of the D-Days. Please let me know what it's from when you send the pictures in. Now, we're getting there, Natasha. You're right. Here's what's happening. A lot of you guys probably already know that AI hallucinates or just makes stuff up. It's hitting note patterns and visual patterns, OCR, optical character recognition, and it's tagging the wrong stuff a lot of the time. Trying to Google, YouTube didn't even give me the option to argue. They said you can either accept demonetization or change the music. Okay, and they didn't even give me an option to grieve it. And I'm like, there might have been one if it's there. I wasn't going to worry about it. There's a couple of points I'm going to get to here. First off, AI is crap. I know it does some cool, interesting stuff, but it is
better than others.
Yeah, but Ken, they're tagging people for hate speech because a guy's flying an RCME 262. He goes flying by, and because there's a swastika on the tail, the OCR caught it, the optical character recognition caught it, and burned him for hate speech just on a momentary flyby. Okay, they're also tagging stuff that's not swastikas that it just thinks are. It got my Panther tank, and it doesn't even have one on it. It just has the Balkan crosses. And it can't be because of the music I use, because I use Erica and the Panzerlied. Those are still songs you can play in Germany today. It's not like the Horst Wessel. So, also the monetization, this has been is rapidly on its way to being a totally failed experiment. As I understand it, YouTube has this algorithm that goes up and down and reads, and your monetization is based on a snapshot at the end of the month. At one point, it had me like I was upwards of $40 whole. I'm sorry. Should I wait till you finish ordering? Hit the mute button. But I don't think Skynet would be really. Give Skynet credit. It was a lot of for all of its problems. It was efficient. Yeah, watch. We'll get burned for that. The Panzerlied is still the German tanker song today, and Erica is still a song. It's just a folk song. So, it's just making crap up. And they're wondering, you had some... Yeah. So, I'm slowly starting, as I make videos, to put them out on Rumble, which is no great shakes itself. It's slow. But, they keep every day now, because I have over 2,000 videos, I think. Every day I'm getting emails from YouTube because it's going through my stuff. We can't monetize this. Well, nobody's watched it in 2 years. Big surprise. But I got so much stuff back there, unless I go back and delete my old library, it's distinctly possible that the channel may get taken down just based on crap that's already out there. And if suddenly you click on this channel in here, you'll know what happened. I'm getting unsolicited emails from other YouTubers who have watched this channel, and they're telling me that the exact same thing has happened to them over a German tank. I think one guy got popped for a Japanese airplane. And I'm like, if they consider the Hinamaru, oh boy, everybody's screwed. That's the other thing, is that I was going to say, at one point it was showing I was up to earning as much as $40 for the month, and now it's down to $19 because it goes up and down. At the end of the month, they take a snapshot, and that's what they pay you. It's just getting out of hand. I have concerns. So, it was Mike Post music. Yeah.
Nathan, they use AI to screen resumes that people send in to determine whether or not they even have the skills that they're looking for.
I'm sorry, what's that, Ken?
Recruiting agencies, they use resumes to screen. They use AI to screen resumes to see if they had the skills for the job that the people were looking for before anybody even looks at them.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
No, they've been doing that for a long time.
And
Frank Field says at this rate, you're going to owe them money at the end of every month.
It could very well go that way. And there are a lot of legitimate. You see, Trey's got a lot of German aircraft and stuff, so he gets burned all the time for hate speech. And it's a matter of time before they probably start taking us down.
Yeah, he just put up that they're nailing him all the time for quote unquote hate speech.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. And you know, I don't want to go any further down that rabbit hole because I gotta. You know, what we need is for somebody with the money just to buy YouTube and just erase all that stuff. Make it like it was 5-10 years ago, man. You know, unless you're just really doing something illegal, let it be the wild. I miss the Wild West of the internet. And I told people, I said, you watch. I told people 10 years ago, right now we're living in the Wild West days of the internet where you can do all kinds of cool stuff. But you watch, in time you won't be able to as they get more and more control over it. And one of our favorite YouTubers, Mike Mashat, basically stopped doing the stuff he was doing because they just out of the blue decided to change the pay algorithm. And I know a bunch of YouTubers lost 70-80% of their income. And I'm sitting here putting out a video to 2 videos a day. So conservatively 40-45 videos a month that get 1,000+ views each. And when it's all said and done, I'm $12. And they don't pay anything till you hit $100. So which looks like that's what I'm looking to make for a year. So I may just drop the whole monetization thing. I'll give it some more time, see if something can generate. And people are like, why don't you do Patreon? Well, they've had those kinds of problems over there. They've had people lose their Patreon because Patreon just decided we don't like what you're doing. And, Rob Altus, you're pretty much right. And so I might just stand on the street corners for the sign that says, "We'll YouTube for food." The only reason, the thing is that I have to remember is I started doing this for the fun of it. I love models. I love building them. I love the history behind them. I love dealing with other people. I like going to the model, to the cons and stuff, to the conventions, and it's just a hoot for me. But and I've gotten to meet so many cool people. The people are really what make this worth doing. So I'll keep doing it but I'm afraid that the noose, the YouTube noose, the U-noose is starting to it's not the money, Roy, but I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And by the way, I've had folks send money on a super chat. I have no idea where that went. It sure isn't being reflected in the YouTube thing. So I hope they haven't billed you because none of it's made it. By the way, I think, somebody told me you only get 30% of a super chat or YouTube takes 30%. I forget what it is. It's, I don't know how that works, but, Streamlabs for YouTube for 100% donates.
This is almost like 1984 in practical use.
You see, here's the thing. If I do Patreon's like a real job. You have to put out a certain amount of content, and you have to make it for Patreon members only. I don't know what their thing is on like copyright stuff, but YouTube takes 30%. Okay. So, but as long as I can keep making, I'm going to keep making them because I enjoy it. This is how I spend my time. This is what I like doing. If I was worried about making money, this is not what I'd be trying to do. And if I was going to do YouTube for money, it certainly would not be, kit models. Probably make more money doing cat videos. But,
probably.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But we'll see.
They're fake videos.
Did you know the Panzerliebe was banned in 2017 by the German? I did not know that. Because I knew it was, back when I was in the Army, it was still the official German tankers song. Yes, I know that was 4 decades ago. I did not know that. Well, do you guys know what a Bangalore is? Yes, a Bangalore torpedo is a long tube full of explosives. You slide it under barbed wire, it goes boom, and no more barbed wire. If you want to see a good use of a Bangalore torpedo, watch The Longest Day. That's Robert Mitchum has Jeffrey Hunter set up a Bangalore torpedo underneath the German defenses.
Captain Pike.
Brian Tate says, "Hooray! Cat videos by Max."
Yes, we'd love to see more, funny. But this is why you're getting all this lame music now. You know, I'm using the free YouTube music just to stay out of that's a landmine that's easy to step around. But one of the things though is that I actually went out and turned the air conditioner on the shed today. I hope to go in and get some work done, and I did rearrange my stash a little bit. But I was so sidetracked with things to do today that I didn't get any actual building done. So hopefully tomorrow I'll start doing some building. I want to do this Wright Flyer, I want to do the Corsair and the Kubelwagen. But I have a lot of other models. You know, one of the dangers of going through the stash is you're rearranging it. Oh, wow, I really want to build that. And you start getting motivated. It's good for getting you motivated because now, you know, I want to do that. Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm going to make this like a group build, but it's more like a game. I was going through the stash, and I think I'm just going to put like a little video together on it. It would just be one of my videos. Kit models of real equipment, so no sci-fi or fantasy stuff, real equipment that looks like it belongs in a science fiction or kaiju film. And I saw that F-82, the twin Mustang, and I was thinking, I could so see that thing, you know, attacking Godzilla or chasing UFOs across the desert. And I started going through my models, what looked weird enough. Of course, anything by Blumenvoss would make the list almost by default. Cat Chat. Okay, that's not bad, actually.
George Taylor says from Captain Max to Cat and Max.
Hold on. I got to write that down. I might just have to steal that. Where's that pad I just stole? I got some souvenirs from the cruise ship because I'm all about the cheap souvenirs. There's my bag tag. This is the notepad out of the room. My wife and I won a bunch of trivia again. We actually bought this hat because I had a veterans meeting there, so I was in the 101st, so I bought this 101st. My wife got me this 101st Airborne cap. That's it. There's my parking pass. Yep, I'm all about the cheap souvenir. But we did win a deck of playing cards for winning a trivia game. I played every trivia game on the boat. We got in another trivia game, it's supposed to squeak, Rubber Ducky. And,
oh, yes, it squeaks.
Wow, there's my 101st
medallion.
medallion.
You retiring has definitely got to cut down on your stationery supplies.
And this little thing, apparently something you stick to the back of your cell phone that you can put your credit cards in, which I have no intention of putting my credit cards next to the greatest demagnetizer in history. But I guess it works. But anywho, Captain, and oops, I got my sister a coffee mug, and anyway.
Bob Alta says that blew out some speakers.
Yeah, sorry guys. That's actually the first time I've squeaked it. I did not know it was that loud. Apologies. So, anywho, get that serious look on my face here. Wow, I really do have Fremen eyes.
Were you in the 101st Panzer Division?
101st Screaming Eagles, Airborne Air Assault. Hooah! Back in my immortal youth.
Frankfield says, Max, you just set my dogs off. Robert says, not to mention headphones. Now I can't hear a thing.
Sorry. Apologies to all the Huns out there. I did not know that thing was that loud. Wow, that even kind of got my ear. So, the Wright Flyer is next on the agenda, and I was just watching Rex's Hangar today. He did a very long one on Glenn Curtis. It's funny. It's funny how the styrene river works. I'm sitting here with the Wright Flyer on the desk right there, planning to build it here in the office. And yesterday, someone gave me that 1909. I forgot the name of it. That little early pre-World War I airplane, which I thought might have been what James Fox was flying in those Magnificent Men in their flying machines. But turns out that was an Antoinette 4. But they look a lot alike. And then this video comes on, so it got me motivated to build those. And he was talking about Glenn Curtis and the Wrights and everything. And I'm like, he's talking a lot about the Wrights while I'm working on the Wright Flyer. I'm like, it just, sometimes the universe lines things up. And you guys may have heard me talk about this before, but the Pukin Buzzards, that's it, baby. 82nd, the Jumpin' Junkies. But which cruise ship? Celebrity Silhouette. Kitchen Division. I did do a lot of KP. But there was what was called the Patent Wars. And there is a good argument to be made that if you want to make an actual living, you need at least 100,000 subscribers. That's probably true. But there was a real honest to God patent war between Curtiss and the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers did everything in secret. They tried to protect their patents. They were hawkish on, and that stopped a lot of innovation. Overseas, the Europeans, some of them didn't care about U.S. patents, and they were getting ahead of us. Curtiss was fighting with the Wrights until he died over these patent issues, and it really did stifle aviation development in this country. But and I'm not trying to blame the Wrights. I mean, they were businessmen. They did this as a financial endeavor. Curtiss was the exact opposite. He did it for the love of flying. He did everything openly and publicly. He sold airplanes. He sold a lot more planes than the Wrights did. I mean, like 100 a year, which back then was a huge number. So it was, as I'm building the Wright Flyer, I'm just thinking to myself, Orville, Wilbur, we need to have a talk. But it's funny, you don't really see that many models of the Curtiss planes, and they were far more prolific. Of course, there aren't the Pyro and a couple other companies made models of those early airplanes. A lot of people aren't interested in them, but personally, I find them fascinating.
Well, am I mistaken that there was never really a definitive movie done about the Wrights and building the plane and flying?
Yes, you are correct. I'll give you some movie ideas. All right. Now they're not genius movie ideas like Bambi meets Godzilla, but they're movie ideas. There have been some television movies made about the Wrights, and I think the reason is that, and I don't mean to. This isn't meant in any way to be pejorative. The Wrights were basically boring. There were a couple of reclusive bicycle engineers who pioneered aircraft. They kept everything inside. I don't know if either one of them ever married. They lived with their sister. They were constantly, chasing people down about legal rights and stuff and patent law. I think a lot of people just don't think it would be that interesting. Now, there was a good television movie with, I think it's Michael Moriarty, made, I think, in the 90s. And it dealt with the Wright-Curtiss patent thing, although they definitely tried to make Curtiss the bad guy in this. It historically speaking was a pretty good show, but it wasn't exactly scintillating. And I think that's one of the reasons Hollywood kind of shies away from it, because, there's just not a lot of drama there. And it deals with their rather tedious process of getting the airplane, going past gliders and getting the engine to work and everything. So, but, obviously I'd watch it. Another good movie, something I talked about recently, I think would have all the excitement and adventure you could want, would be about the Ravens in Laos. The Americans flying the T-28s and the Bird Dogs. There's plenty of action and adventure there. And, there were only like 100 and something of those guys, and 13 of them were killed. So, that's a high casualty rate. So another one we were talking about earlier, the soccer war, that could make a pretty interesting one. There have been all these little spots in history that would be great for making movies, and I'm kind of surprised Hollywood's overlooked them, because they have only to read the history book. The script writes itself, and so.
Ken, what do you think about that?
I think Max should write a script and try and market it.
We need to have something that would be scintillating, that would be historically, significant. How about like Helen Keller paints the Mona Lisa?
What was that thing Bill Whittle talked about that's how you get a talking dog in Schindler's List? There's a YouTuber out there, very well known one. He's a conservative spokesman named Bill Whittle. He's out of L.A. and or Sherman Oaks. Anyway, he's been on a bunch of YouTube channels, PJTV, the Right Angle, a few others. He's still very active today, and he does a lot. I think he does a live stream every day. Anyway, the movie about the brothers. Yeah, it wasn't exactly exciting. But he was talking about how Hollywood messes things up. And he went through this logic exercise about the director wants to make this happen, that happen. He wants to do this. Well, maybe it could be a dream sequence or something. La, 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 la. And it's how Hollywood, and he goes, and that's how you end up with a talking dog in Schindler's List. And I was like, the sad part is, because Bill's been in Hollywood for most of his career. He was an editor, and I was like, he's not making that up. They actually did it wasn't Saturday Night Live, but William Shatner was a guest star of some variety type show. And he's a guy who's got like secrets on a nuclear power plant that's got a problem or something. He tries to, no one will listen to him, so he tries to go to a movie guy to see about maybe making a movie about it to expose it, like the China Syndrome. And as soon as Hollywood gets it, they're like, we'll bring in the dance corps. Yeah, we could do a song and dance about that. And just how they totally obliterated. I was like, dear God. And I've been in a couple of movies and having dealt with those folks, I'm like, it's not that much of an exaggeration. But I always wonder. I mean, the book. Oh crap! I might have the book I was talking about yesterday about Takatsu and Tsuburaya. I just can't get over the one of my guilty pleasures is King Kong versus Godzilla. You guys, I'm sure you're shocked to hear that movie. And I'm embarrassed to say this now, but when I was 10 years old, that movie terrified me. When Crooked Teeth Godzilla attacked the tanks on the island, you saw him coming in from the sea. I was like, ah! I was under my chair. But now it's like it's just one of my guilty pleasures. Well, anyway, let me find that real quick. Let's see, not that one. This one. Okay, here it is.
Brian Tate says William Shatner is here in Huntsville, Alabama this weekend, charging $200 an autograph.
$200 an autograph? Hey, Bill, that's okay. I can write your name on the picture. No one will ever know.
Well,
okay.
Now that he officially is someone who went into space.
Yeah, did you see the uniforms? Everyone was wearing red but him. I'm like, guys, we've seen this before. It's not going to end well for you. But I am assuming that this scene is from King Kong vs. Godzilla because it's Tsuburaya was shooting the movie with a live octopus, which, they used a live octopus in that movie. Never dawned on me the octopus was that small. This thing's being shot on a tabletop, and I'm like, I just love this. These guys are making a quote-unquote major motion picture with an octopus on a tabletop. And I don't know. There's just something about that just cracks me up. And it makes me want to go...
Is this your way of telling us you went to the pet store today and bought some aquatic fish?
Gotta admit, I was kind of having a thought. And
now that you got that sea view model, you can get a little octopus.
Funny you should mention that. Oh, by the way, Steve, I was going to give you one of the sea views and one of the copies of the book if you'd like that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, I'll set those aside for you. Next time we get together, I can just ship it up to you. But I know you got a lot on the table right now, but I'll put them aside. Yeah. But it got me when I was looking. It's funny you mentioned I was looking at the sea view, and I was looking at Godzilla. My Polar Lights Godzilla up here, and I guess it's the Tsuburaya in me. But I started thinking of a scene of Godzilla, not versus the sea view, but you know how submarines always end up in Godzilla movies. And, yeah, Shatner using an auto pen. I had RoboCop. I buy that for $1. Okay, good. That was good. So I was thinking it wouldn't be that hard to make a tongue-in-cheek fan film, Godzilla meets the sea view. Where maybe, you know, I don't know, the sea view's supposed to track him, but they ping him with radar or sonar, and he comes after them. They have to play a game of hide and seek, you know, and everything. And, you know, you can't destroy the sea view, and you can't kill Godzilla, so somehow, you know. But I was just thinking, man, if I ever get to make a Godzilla movie, somehow the sea view's got to be in there, you know.
That's how you know you're a true modeler, is when you look at something and something else and you go, I could put those together.
I could put those together. Okay. You just invented a new game, whether you know it or not, Steve.
Uh-oh.
All right. Attention, all blue troopers. I have a homework assignment for you. Go to your stash, pick 2 models that are not like a World War I, like a pair of World War I fighter planes. You know, not like a Sopwith Camel and a Fokker DR-1. Pick 2 things that don't belong together, that you think you could somehow work out together, whether in a diorama or a storyline. Take a picture of them and tell me what your idea is. With me, it's the Sea View and Godzilla. And maybe with an F-82 flying top cover. All right?
The crowd says Godzilla meets Katy Perry.
I'm not dissing it.
And Godzilla would lose.
Yeah.
She's the one that went up in Bezos' rocket recently with her girlfriends.
Oh, yeah. Is that Katy Perry? I'm so out of tune with the pop culture these days.
Steve was actually rooting for the rocket to blow up.
Yes, it was.
They came close in Godzilla King of the Mars. If you look closely, the captain of the Mobius sub is Crane. David Hedison? Godzilla King of the Mars. If you look closely. Well, you're talking about the Seahawk? That wasn't. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Bill. But no, wait, that wasn't King of the Monsters. That was King Kong versus Godzilla. Anyway,
Godzilla knocks Glenn out of the sky.
Now you're cooking with gas.
There we go. Now we got something going here.
Wendy's wanted
to send Katie back to space.
So whatever you guys come up with, like you know, Jeep and a model truck and a UFO, which come on, I mean, rednecks and UFOs, they go together like, you know, fried and chicken.
Leave the food out of it, Max.
Sorry, it's just where my mind went. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was.
Work out the Earth's hills in 20 minutes.
She was part of the crew the same way my passengers used to be part of the crew. Oh, Mr. Rogers and I meant to say Freddy Krueger. I almost said Freddie Mercury. I'm not sure which one's scarier.
I got one.
What?
How about Eddie Murphy is Mr. Robinson and Godzilla is the guy to go collect the rent?
See how the hell am I? Oh, I am so out of here. You know, Batman versus Godzilla. Well, think of the final countdown. We had Zeros versus F-14s. You know, so use your imagination. Yeah. Oh, did he? Oh, okay. Oh, Zero and F-14. There it is. And that's been done. Okay, come up with your own. But Sea View versus Godzilla. That's mine. Ooh, here's one for you. Here's an example. The Jupiter 2 from Lost in Space meets Star Wars. No.
I thought it was Bezos' way of getting out of engagement.
How about
that's what I thought.
There you go, Tom. Ontos and the Dukes of Hazzard. Get this lead jump. This. Hey, you're cooking. Hey, here's one. The Starship Enterprise finds the derelict Jupiter 2 in space.
Not sure if 3 minutes in space makes you an astronaut. I'm a gynecologist.
I wasn't going to say
you only
that.
spent 3 minutes?
Family Channel.
Family, that's why I wasn't going to say anything. You brought it up, Steve.
Yeah, Steve. Bad Steve. Bad Steve. Steve, roll up a piece of newspaper, wrap yourself across the nose.
Sorry.
Gumby versus Godzilla.
Gundam and a tiger tank. There you go. I like that.
75th Rangers at the Alamo.
Yeah, see, what? Hey, Santa Ana, take this. The Reavers eat Deep Space Nine. A little sick, but I like it.
I don't know, Steve. Seems like Bezos spent an awful lot of money for 11 minutes of peace and quiet.
It was worth it.
Hey, Bill, it was cheaper than having her on the ground spending his money.
Oh, I bet she does that really well.
Like we couldn't. What would you? Okay. Oh wow, it's almost 9 o'clock. Yeah. If I wanted to waste $1 billion, I'd start an airline.
That's how you make a small fortune.
Start with a big one. But well, guys, we're getting near wrap-up time here. What time? You know, you're having a good time. You look down and the time's just kind of gotten away from you. That's when you know you're having fun.
Snoopy in an Abrams.
I could do that. There you get Flintstones in a drag race with a Munster coach.
There we go. That's right. There you go, Rob.
Now, Rob Altus, good job. See, Godfrey versus Godzilla. Again, he'll go with I
think Godfrey would win that one. Godzilla would go running away with covering his ears.
Yeah. Start a race team. Yeah, that'll do it.
There you go. That would guarantee you a small fortune.
Night, Chuck.
Night, Chuck. Take care, man. Hope you had some fun. Well, guys, it's all in good fun, and
Oh, wait, Don Lee, Mr. Peabody commanding a Sherman tank.
Well, Sherman, it was nice of you to turn into a tank. Rommel, Patton, and Lily Munster. Well, why not? Vern's Nautilus versus the Yamato.
Yamato. I like that.
Let's see which one has the stronger steel. And you see, you guys got the spirit. And take pictures of the two of them, send them to me, and tell me what your idea is. That could be a fun little video.
Back to the Future DeLorean and the Time Tunnel.
Red Baron and F-104. Christine versus the Mach 5.
Has Bezos ever gone up in that thing?
No, he's not stupid.
No.
Rat Patrol versus Dune. We got to outrun that sandworm, guys. A-10s versus Martian War Machines.
Versus the Martian War Machine.
Styrene smash up. Well, yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. A styrene mashup. Mix and match. Oh, I am not touching that one. You guys remember what happened to those Southwest pilots? They had to go to re-education. Batmobile versus Tiger Tank. Calypso and C-130. Sky Captain World. There you go. At Pearl Harbor. Well, okay, Bill. You take care, brother. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to sign off here in just a minute anyway. Yeah. Oh, the hot pants with the boots. Yeah. And they already did Ford versus Ferrari. How about Chevrolet versus Lamborghini?
Ooh. 747's fighting U-boats underwater.
Oh, Airport 77 meets, Das Boot. The tangent went off tangent. That's like tangent squared. That's like 4 tangents. Well, guys. Huh?
Isn't that an enigma?
Wrapped up in a piece of bacon with layers like an onion.
Thunderbirds versus Thunderbirds.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for tonight. I'll loop the outro so you guys can chat with each other for a little bit if you like. And I have got to go and see if I can be fed. I must be fed.
Oh, yes. Make sure, Monica, please make sure Max is fed.
Yes.
Even if he had a bad job.
You do not want to see me when I get how I get. Mm-mm-mm.
I've seen you hungry. It's not pretty.
Yeah, Ken, I'm not really pretty when I'm not hungry, so you can imagine when I am. Well, guys, I'll let you say your 99s and we'll hit the road.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate y'all being here. Some of you got some pretty bizarre things to say, but that's okay. We take everybody. Good night, y'all.
Guys, thanks for tuning in again. You never know what you're up to when you tune into a live stream on Max's models. So just imagine what next week holds in store. So tune in, same time, same Max channel for an entertaining Saturday night. Good night, and thanks for tuning in.
Guys, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a pleasant evening. Take care, and as always, model on.